get a good buyer, one that is interested in paperwork, traceability, impact, they will ask you a lot more paperwork, but that's why you need to be compliant.
Interesting. So compliance is a key thing.
Number one.
Why is it that the world is looking at Africa? And probably maybe why don't Africans see what we have?
Number one, Africa is the continent of the present. Let's stop with this nonsense of Africa being the continent of the future. Arid lands are immense.
True. And there's so much, yeah.
We believe there is a lot of value in arid land. My tip for who's unemployed is stay active as if you're working. Wake up early. Don't idle, that's the worst thing you can do, because it's a moment that you just become idle, and look, things like depression, anxiety, they're real.
Good evening and welcome to the Late Night Business. My name is Ian Dennis, and tonight we have a very interesting show lined up with an interesting gentleman who's traversed different particular continents in the name of business development, and he has set up a very interesting brand that you're going to be uncovering through a conversation. But before we get to start off, I'd like to let you know that we are here at the Capital Club, the place you need to be as an entrepreneur or as an executive. At the Capital Club, you get different particular access to very many different particular amenities right here at the Capital Club. Not only the gym, the spa, but also something very interesting is that as the members of the Capital Club, every Thursday is an interesting opportunity for you to unwind. So you need to join the Capital Club today. The guest that I am hosting today is called Tommaso Menini. I hope I got the name right.
Fantastic.
I got the Italian accent.
You did.
How are you doing? Nice to see you.
Good to see you again, Ian.
Good to see you again. It's been quite a while since we last interacted. Yeah, I know you're multilingual. Primarily, how would you say hi in Italian?
Well, it's ciao, or buongiorno, buonasera, depending on the time that we're in.
Interesting. In Portuguese?
Bon dia.
Interesting. In Spanish?
Buenos dias.
In Swahili?
Wait, why you got me there? Wait. Well, Abarialeo. That's
Abarialeo, yes. And in French?
Abariagioni, if it's evening.
In French?
Bonjour.
Interesting. You can speak so many different languages.
I can survive in many languages.
Wow.
I'm very fluent in my native language and English, and then I can survive in all of them.
Interesting. For me, I think I just know like 4.
Well,
English, Swahili,
but you do them well.
German.
But you do them well.
I try, but hopefully I can learn something from you. But before we start this particular conversation, what exactly are you most grateful for today?
Grateful?
Yes.
Well, I woke up alive. That's a good start. I woke up alive and healthy, and I always have a drive, and that's the most important thing. Every day I wake up knowing exactly what I'm supposed to do.
Interesting. I can see the excitement. It's a beautiful day that today is going to be.
I do have that.
Interesting. So I want to just before we even get into your business and your enterprise life, I always like to know the background towards the person, because I always believe the background always has an influence to who you are today. Maybe you can just take me through growing up in Italy. Why did you grow up in Italy? How was your earlier life like?
Yeah. So I was born in Milan. Milan is a very international city. It's also known as fashion capital, right? And
between AC Milan and Inter Milan, which one do you support?
Inter Milan.
Inter Milan. All right,
Inter
so
Milan.
we can continue.
3 generations. 3 generations. So Milan is an important international vibe city. So I'm exposed to big city life. My father is a businessman. Is a small medium entrepreneur. And my mom was a yoga teacher and
yoga.
And a nutritionist.
Wow.
So I grew up in a family that was both liberal and exposed. We traveled. So traveling has been very important, not only for the beginning of my life, but also for my adult life. So growing up in Milan was great. I also got close to the fashion industry. One of the best summer jobs I ever had was driving models around since I was 18, 19, because I could speak some English and not many Italians could. And so fashion has been part of my upbringing, because Milan, you're just exposed to it, right? But then I left when I was 20. My mother, again, a very strong influence in my life, pushed me to move entirely to another country, and we picked Australia. So at 20 years old, I went to the furthest point from home.
What exactly triggered Australia? Because probably I can bring one continent to another continent.
Yeah, probably they wanted to send me as far as possible. Well, it worked, because that sped up my growth as a man. And I became independent. And I don't know if you know, but Italians are known to be mama boys and to stay home
yes, I've
until
heard
they
about
marry.
that.
It's
Yes.
true. It's
Even
true.
I think I saw another documentary whereby there's like, is it an epidemic whereby Italians never want to leave their mother's houses and they
but
stay there until
for a
their
reason.
40s.
For a reason. Our
Why?
mothers treat us extremely well. Why are you
But you
pushing?
can't get married to your mothers.
Okay, no, you can't. But the economy it's tough.
Yes, also there's that,
Milan is one of the most expensive cities in Europe, so a lot of young men stay home. Women are more independent. Women leave the house earlier than men.
That's something very interesting about Italian culture.
But then again, the mothers are always spoiling and pampering young men, me included. But I was pushed far from home to grow, and Australia was an incredibly significant chapter of my life.
Interesting. And before we even get to Australia, you mentioned also your dad was also in business. What was your dad involved in?
My dad is another very strong influence in my life. He's a salesman after all, and
Just like you.
I am. Yeah, I've looked up to him selling in all sorts of contexts and environment. My dad was in insurance, which is not a easy sale. It's most insurances are not exactly essential, so you need to be a good salesman. And I did work with him for a while as well, and I got to know how tough can be to sell insurance. But I looked up to him and his way of selling, which was always very charismatic and again selling. So I've been influenced by both my parents.
Interesting.
And I am a gifted man to have had such parents.
That's very interesting because it's a very interesting combination of a
It is.
nutritionist and someone in yoga, your mom and
Sun
your
and
dad.
the moon.
Yeah.
Nothing in common. I don't know how they got together in the first place, but it happened.
No, but the insurance guy, of course, he can sell himself
He
to
could,
anything.
he really could.
And what will you say was some of the vital lessons that you learned from your dad? Because you could say your dad was a salesman, something that he also went in the same pathway.
My dad taught me a lot of things, but mostly sense of justice. I have seen him getting into very personal fights all throughout his life. In fact, sometimes I look at what I'm doing and I am seeing my dad, because he had a company with up to 15 employees. That's right about
insurance.
Yeah, that was his own
Yeah.
agency as part of a bigger conglomerate, but
Yes.
his own. The employees, he was paying taxes, contributions, just like a business owner. And I've seen him fight certain situation against banks, other clients, and he always taught me, do not let go if you think you are right and if you think you are just. So that sense of justice really fuels me up to now. I do most of my fights out of principle. I can take you to court for 200 shillings if I need to. It's not for the 200 shillings,
It's for the
it's for the
justice.
principle. It's always been a principle. That's one thing that my dad taught.
Interesting. And from your dad, from your mom, I mean.
Well, look,
Because your mom was very interesting into yoga, which is something very.
she always, my mom boosted my confidence from a very early age, mostly because I used to stutter. I don't know if I told you that last time. I was a stutterer.
You're a stutterer? Just like Biden.
Yeah,
Biden or Biden?
Biden or
Biden, yes.
even King, what was Elizabeth's dad, now I forget. But stuttering can be incredibly daunting for a young man, and it's usually a software problem. There's nothing wrong with your jaw, right?
Yes.
And stuttering can really influence a person because you have problems communicating and you communicate all the time.
And right now you communicate so well. How?
Why?
What?
Because my mom sat with me and read out loud and boosted my confidence, because it was mostly something to do with self-esteem. And she boosted my confidence day in, day out, telling me I could be anything I ever wanted, which is what every parent should tell every child. But and eventually I believed that I could be anything I wanted, and I became a confident man.
Interesting.
Some
That's
say
good.
too much, but I rather be slightly overconfident
Yeah.
than stuttering as an adult. Is a limit, is an
One
handicap.
can't even tell that you're a stutterer at a point in your life. which is
When
very interesting.
when I get nervous, sometimes I
Which
feel
right now I believe it's hardly.
that. I do, but yeah, that's one thing that my mom always told me to believe in myself, and always gave me the confidence that I could be anything I want.
Interesting. So now take me through that particular transition. So from Italy, you went to Australia when you're 20. You're quite young, going to a new
Yeah,
continent,
it
all
wa-
alone,
It
new.
was not easy.
How was that particular transition?
Well, my English was broken. It was like fresh off the boat. I clashed against a number of cultural values. Although, let's be frank, Australia is a Western civilization, Western country. It's not that. It's not like moving to Vietnam.
True, true.
So it wasn't that hard. And Australia is a beautiful country.
Yeah.
And the government is pretty practical and things work. And I might say the transition was easy because there is a huge Italian-Australian community. And they're very supportive with each other and with other Italians.
Interesting. So you had gone there to study?
I did. I did study business, in fact. First a diploma and then a bachelor. And a bachelor. A bachelor, you would say, sorry.
Oh, all right. That's in Italian.
It's English, but I guess it's my accent, yeah. A bachelor.
A bachelor, oh.
But again, sometimes,
you
know, sometimes the Australian accent comes up. Plus, if you're an Italian that went to study or lived in the US, you would say smaller, faster. But in Australia, they open the A. Smaller, faster, bigger. I've learned that English.
Oh yeah, I was like listening to my own things.
But Australia was great. I've become an adult in Australia, and it was a good time to be in Sydney. Sydney was a fantastic, vibrant city, and it was an incredibly important part of my life, and I'm very grateful that I have gone through that process. It gave me this level of English, which again allowed me to speak and work in any Anglophone country, including Kenya.
Interesting. How was your life now post-school? What was it called? Did you get into employment? Did you start business? How exactly was your first? Yeah.
My family supported me through university, but I still always worked as much as I could. That is one thing that I did. I worked since an early stage. 16, I was already working every weekend.
What are you doing?
I was waitering, a waiting table at my brother's pizzeria. We used to have a restaurant.
In Italy or
in Milan?
In Milan, yes.
I was 16, so I was still there. And I did it for 2 or 3 years. Then little jobs, little modeling and little like that driving gig for models. And then I left at 20. And so when I got to Australia, immediately...
So you started touching money quite early?
Yeah, well, I mean, little money, but I started working, even if it was for free, which I don't believe in working for free.
Yeah.
It was important that I started having responsibilities from an early stage, so that I had a schedule from early stage. And I never stopped. I've always worked throughout my life. I've been unemployed maybe 6 months of my life. And my tip for who's unemployed is stay active as if you're working. Wake up early, don't idle, that's the worst thing you can do. Wake up early, exercise, and then put yourself in a schedule that looks like work. Because it's a moment that you just become idle, and look, things like depression, anxiety, they're real. So I worked all throughout my life. When I went to Australia, I immediately started working. And because my English was not that great, I started, again, waiting tables, which I hate. I'm not a good waiter. But then I became, more proficient in English, and I started teaching Italian.
That's it.
Which was great.
So that was one of your first good paying gigs, you can actually say that.
That was a good paying gig, yes. I was paid well per hour.
Interesting. And now, when did you transition into the NGO world?
Oh, well, that's, so we still have a chapter in Australia, which is retail. So the teaching was good, but it was not so frequent, right? So I started working in shops. And because I came from Milan and I used to, dress in a certain way, or I ended up working in boutiques that sold Italian brands, Cavalli, Armani, Versace, the big firms. So that's how I started into retail, and before I knew it, the moment that I left Australia, university, I did full-time retail. Then this is now 2009. I went back to Australia after a short gig in Italy, because my original plan was, let me go to Australia, get my English, get my diploma or a bachelor, and then go back home, work with my dad.
Yes.
I did had a plan to work with him, but after I tasted the life in Australia and mostly a winterless life, because European winter, it's tough.
Yes.
Every time I went back to Europe during winter, I asked people, how do you do this? I don't remember growing up in this corner. So after Australia, which is a very temperate
Yes.
weather in Sydney, that is, I very much could not go back to Milan. Milan seemed small. I then realized I liked to live as an expat or a migrant. I'm both, and so I did. I went back in 2009, a little year in Australia, and then I moved to Uganda. That's the NGO work.
Interesting.
When I was studying business,
Yeah.
I majored in sociology and politics. Now, these two, I was the first alumni in ever that majored in two humanities coming from business. So that gave you an idea of where I wanted my business experience to go.
True.
And that's how I started my NGO work. I was always a business developer, and I was always engaged in income generation activities, which is what I did in Uganda. I went there and I helped rural startup creating income.
Interesting. And before even get there, just because you've traversed, at least you can say as of now where the story is 3 different continents, Africa, Australia, and Europe. And you've tasted different particular cultures. How vital would you say having interaction with different cultures is for any person who wants to go into business?
Huge. Again, this is from my parents' influence. My mom, when I graduated from university, told me she was going to give me the best gift that a person can have. And I was really curious. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
She bought me a round the world ticket. And she told me, Tommaso, go out, travel the world. That gave me an edge. In that year alone, I traveled 25 countries.
Interesting.
In one
How many
year.
continents?
All of them. Apart North America, I did South America, Africa, Asia, Australia, which is a continent, and Europe. All but North America. In 1 year.
Wow.
And thanks to my mom. So I want to do the same thing for my child, for my son, when he's of age. That gave me an incredible edge because you need to understand the importance of culture when you're doing business. There are certain things. For instance, I still struggle with one.
Yes.
Here in East Africa, raising your voice is a big no. Where I come from, we raise our voice all the time. I give this disclaimer to my employees. I say, look, I out my frustration by raising my voice. Do not take it as a personal attack or an effort to humiliate you. It's just how we out. So that's a cultural trait, right? So that's culture for you. Here, you don't put a person on the spot in front of us. You will humiliate that person. That's just one thing that I can tell you off my head.
Interesting.
Asian, like Japanese people, they don't like to be touched. And we are very touchy. Italians always touch people all the time and hug. We even kiss people when we meet. So these are all things that you learn. You don't have to travel the world to know them, but it's better if you do. It just added something to your personal baggage.
Interesting. And from your particular outlook, because you've traversed all these particular continents, there's now a very big light that's being shined onto Africa. Why, from your particular perspective, why is it that the world is looking at Africa? And probably maybe, why don't Africans see what we have?
Well, number one, I don't know if I should say now how I happened in Kenya, because we were back in Uganda.
Yes.
Then after Uganda, I went back to Australia, because me and my mom, again, as a team, thought it would be good to have permanent residency in a country where I spent so much time.
True.
But then again, the immigration changed laws, and after 2 years there, in fact, after 1 year, I was ready to go back to East Africa, and I like Uganda. It's a country where I lived well.
Yes.
But then I met the mother of my child, so I decided to stay. My child was born in Sydney, but then we decided to move to Kenya. This is why I'm here.
Yes.
I moved because of my son to Kenya. And then I started understanding how, number one, Africa is the continent of the present. Let's stop with this nonsense of Africa being the continent of the future. Present. Present, not future. Present. What I like about being in this continent, in this region, is that although development is going really fast, there is still a lot to build. And it's good to be part of that progress. There is so much yet to do, for instance, in the areas that I work, in the north, dry lands, and there is little infrastructures. There is still a lot to do. And it's very exciting to be part of that building process, right?
Yes.
So that's why I think the focus should be on the continent now. Everyone talks about the resources that Africa has.
Yeah.
Sure, but also the services can be absolutely world level.
Interesting.
This is why I want to start and continue manufacturing and export rather than giving out raw material and raw mass like so many people and companies are doing, because buyers in the West don't trust the current compliance or regulation, or they don't want the products to be done here. So they take the raw material and they do it there.
Interesting.
This needs to stop.
And before you go on a break, what exactly influenced the start of Agar, that's African Agency for Arid Resources? What exactly influenced you to start that particular business?
So that name, African Agency for Arid Resources Limited, is self-explanatory already. We have built this company around arid and semi-arid lands. This is because I was in Isiolo with an NGO for the first 2.5 years in Kenya. I realized that arid lands had a lot of potential, a lot of resources. They had items that could be pushed and developed, and there was value. But then again, as an NGO, I struggled to find private sectors actors that could take off and help the development of such livelihood. In short, I became the private sector that I couldn't find.
Interesting. And on that particular note, you're going to take a short commercial break, and then after the break, you're going to find out how exactly this particular transformation of all that's happening and the resources in Isiolo transformed to this particular wonderful business. So see you after the break. So welcome back, and before we went on a break, we were just discussing this particular interesting discovery with Tommaso on how exactly you went to Isiolo, saw the resources that they had there, and it became an idea whereby you set up the business. So maybe you can just break it down, especially to the audience that's actually listening or just watching to this. What does Agar do? What exactly it is that you saw in Isiolo, and how exactly you transformed it into a business?
Yeah, so we were born as a commodities agency. That's why the term agency is there. At first, with the NGO, I realized there were a number of commodities, namely gum arabic, frankincense, myrrh. Frankincense and myrrh from the Bible.
Frankincense is the one from the scent, making perfumes.
Correct. And the world knows them usually because it's 2 of the 3 gifts given to baby Jesus. That's how much importance they always have.
What are the gifts?
Gold, myrrh, incense.
What's myrrh?
Myrrh and incense are 2 resins that ooze from trees. And these trees are only found in arid and semi-arid lands.
Okay, interesting. So break it down to me. So where exactly are they found, and what exactly is it that you do with them?
So luckily enough, I brought some props here because this one specifically is an essential oil.
What's an essential oil?
As an essential oil is the extraction of the soul of whatever you are extracting. It could be a plant, a resin, just in this case. Could be a leaf, could be a flower, right? So it is distilled. You put the biomass in a distillation unit. It is hydro or steam distilled, and what
just
comes
break it down
out
for a layman.
Well, I mean, distillation
distillation. At least in it chemistry. All right.
Steam or water going in and dissolving the biomass, the raw material, and oil comes out.
Interesting.
And oils, essential oils, are 100% natural. They are natural extracts of whatever raw mass you are distilling.
Interesting.
So we started getting the collection of the raw material.
Yes.
We sold a few as such, as raw material, but we understand margins were not great without transforming. So that's how we started. We started in the first 6 months of the company.
So where exactly are they harvested? Which particular tree do you harvest them
It's
from?
called Boswellia. This one specifically is called Boswellia neglecta.
It's in the arid areas.
Only.
And then what exactly are the essential oils used for?
Various applications. This is now for only outside external applications. So it would be on your skin, it would be on your hair. A lot of essential oils are very good for your hair. Frankincense is also called the king of essential oils because the properties that they have. this one in particular, are very well known antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and antiseptic, for instance. So we have a number of them. We have around 13, 14 essential oils now. Some we make ourselves to toll processors, and some we take from processors after vetting them and making sure that they've done their own supply and sourcing very, very well. So that's how we started, with frankincense alone and myrrh. Gamma arabic is also very, very, very strong for us, although we put it on hold. Gamma arabic is a natural emulsifier, stabilizer, and a binder.
It's also used in food additives.
So,
I think the only time I've come about emulsifiers, because I'm in the dairy industry, I understand
yes.
it's actually used in terms of, what's it called, in the dairy as food additives.
Let me give you one anecdote. There is a milligram of gamma arabic in every soda on this planet.
Soda?
Soda.
Interesting.
If you wouldn't have gamma arabic to stabilize it, the sugars will crystallize, and you would have to scoop sodas, not drink. Sodas is sugar mostly. So that's what gamma arabic does. And again, then look, before we knew it, a lot of people ask us, okay, you have frankincense, but do you have eucalyptus? Do you have lemongrass? Do you have tea tree? So we sourced a number of producers, and we started our own production. And that's how we came about the brand that was launched in 2019 called Essenza. And that was our first brand. Now, as of this last month, we have phased out entirely Essenza, and we moved to Jua, which is our new name.
Interesting. And
Jua by Agar.
Take me just through in terms of, because I've just, your business model is very interesting. So primarily you source for all these particular materials from trees and shrubs within the arid areas, and you basically work with the communities. So how does the business model work? How do you source them? Do you pay them to get it?
Of course.
Take me just through in terms of, sourcing, and then now going to market.
Well, our business model is one of, when possible, complete control over the value chain. That is the best way that you have to ensure traceability and mostly quality, right?
Sure.
So if you know where your product comes from, in terms of proper origin, trees, areas, division, supplier, if you do your job right and your homework right, you know your entire value chain, and you have full-on traceability and transparency. That's what we always wanted to do. That's why we are so radically present in communities and in arid lands. We want to know exactly where it comes from. We do a lot of work. We are also consultants, Ian. We do also a lot of assessments, because once again, arid lands are immense.
True. And there's so much,
There's so much unused potential. Just to give you an understanding, Turkana is bigger than Rwanda. Marsabit is bigger than Burundi. We have Rwanda and Burundi in 2 counties in the north of Kenya. That's how large they are. So we believe there is a lot of value in arid lands. We believe that we can do it ourselves. It should be a synergy with the local government, with the central government, and with other stakeholders. And there is not enough spotlight on what arid lands can do. So we started collecting directly from them. We started transforming, but always keeping an eye on community development.
So you source from the community?
We do, directly.
You process it yourselves?
We do, or through partners. And then we take it all the way to the shelf. There are not many companies that control all the value chain from the tree to the shelf. So that was our model. We want to be engaged and involved in the entire value chain.
And how do you handle, because from my particular research, most of the players are actually multinationals or companies from abroad who have brought in their products in here. You're a local processing company. How do you compete in such a market?
Well, to be honest, Kenya produces a lot of quality in a number of sectors and spaces, but we export a lot of this quality. And we are left with second, third grade tea and coffee. I was told is one of them. And look at essential oils as well. There are a few producers that have them, but if you look at the market, it is mostly imported essential oils. And most of the time, our own essential oils are better. And they might be slightly more expensive. These other essential oils might come from India, China, Egypt. They have lower price points. But again, quality, as you know, means durability. If you buy something that costs 1,000 shillings against one that costs 500 shillings, this one will last you a longer time,
yes.
than that one. And eventually,
Quality, yeah.
cheap is expensive.
Sure.
So we believe that there is enough space for everyone to produce quality. And if you do a good job, eventually you will make it.
Interesting. And I just want to change tact a bit. I know one of your core specialities in business development. And for any particular business to thrive, primarily it has to be very good in terms of the strategy for business development. Out of your experience, especially for any entrepreneur watching this, what are some of the key do's for ensuring that you're able to do proper sales, and the key no's, probably from your experience? Yeah, because sales is a key thing for any particular business to thrive.
Well, number one, what I also do when I do business coaching myself, I am incredibly keen on practical understanding. That's why I want to start my own business incubator. Stay tuned for.
It's coming.
It is. Look, let me tell you why. Because I see as an incubated company, because I've been in five incubators, and there is too much theory, Ian.
Yes, I know.
Business model canvas, value proposition.
Yes.
Look, most of these guys, the startups, they need how to get KFIS certified, help with KEBS. KEBS can be challenging. Get your first KRA. This is called compliance.
Sure.
We need to teach smaller enterprises how to be compliant. So that's the first do. Be compliant, get your regulatory framework fixed immediately, because otherwise you won't be able. For instance, if you want to export, the standards of Europe are different than the standards of Qatar.
Yes.
So there are, try to get yourself a good buyer, because a good buyer drives a good product. A bad buyer drives a bad product. A bad buyer will not care about where it comes from, if you impact positively or not. He will just care about price. That's what bad buyers do. They'll squeeze you. Get a good buyer, one that is interested in paperwork, traceability, impact. They will ask you a lot more paperwork, and that's why you need to be compliant.
Interesting. So compliance is a key thing.
Number one.
What's a key no?
Well, I have learned the hard way. Do not start anything before having done a very thorough market research. Market research it's everything. You need your market. Don't start ciabatta if you don't know who's in the business. Don't start room amenities if you don't know who's in the business.
True.
Do your homework. And there is never enough preparation, there is never enough knowledge. Do your competitor analysis, understand your price points, do your costing. So just get ready to prepare yourself with a business plan, and don't go just out there and start a business without doing your homework. That's a recipe for disaster.
Interesting. One of the things that I also, doing my research on you is that you've also been involved with a lot of funds and enabling particular startups, maybe raise up funds and also maybe just be able to develop their particular businesses. One of the core things that's happening right now, and probably maybe it's an excuse or a one for many particular entrepreneurs, is the aspect of funding. And when it comes to funding, a key aspect to funding is evaluating how much your business is worth. From your particular experience, how can an entrepreneur probably watching this and is looking for data to raise funds or to evaluate their business, how do you determine your worth?
That's very dependent on the industry that you're working in. And strangely enough, if you ask me, but I'm not a tech specialist, so much tech startups. Kenya is the Silicon Valley of Africa, with Nigeria and Egypt, right? So there is Konza City coming up. So that's not my space. But I know the tech company can be evaluated in millions without having sold a single. I am a traditional businessman. I run a biblical business here, Frankincense and myrrh. Like, I am very.
You're supplying the gifts for the wise men.
I'm tangible. So I don't really know much about this tech industry. I know eventually I will have to catch up. And I'm looking at blockchain. That's definitely something of interest to me. But I don't understand how this company gets millions and millions worth of evaluation. I know a more critical and easy evaluation that has to do with EBITDA, which is your net worth after everything, even including depreciation. So EBITDA is usually what people know. But look, evaluation, in my opinion, what you should do is have a market-driven concept, come in for a gap, be able to address a gap, don't duplicate something. Like for instance, how many e-commerce platforms can they be? There's
Very few,
Jimmy,
yeah.
there's Skyguard,
Yeah.
there's this and that, and I don't understand how many can there be. To me, that's an inflated space. You still need producers. If everything is tech, if everything is blockchain, what you put in the blockchain, it still needs to be something tangible, right? So I believe that we also need to make sure that we still produce, and not everything is in the hand of tech startups. Because again, for them to work, they need business like mine.
True.
Otherwise, what do you put in tech? So that is, I lost my line of thought. Where were we?
No, we're just talking about in terms of the business
The
evaluation.
evaluation.
Yes.
Yeah, look,
Yeah.
be market driven. Bootstrap and raise fund with family, friends. Just I'm pretty traditional that way. When you go fundraise, what you need to do is get your pitch right. So that's what the salesman, when the salesman comes.
Let's speak about getting the pitch right, because you're a salesman, you're specialized in business development.
Yeah.
What exactly, how do you get your sales right? From your experience, maybe what are some of the techniques that you actually get to use to ensure that you get the sale?
Number one, know your audience. A very good salesperson once told me, Tommaso, the same efforts you put in selling a bike, you put in selling a helicopter. Try to sell the helicopter. What changes is the audience. You might get a person that negotiates down a bike and a person that negotiates down an helicopter. Just pick your audience. Sell the helicopter. That's one thing that I've learned in Australia, which is business taught the American way.
Yes.
I do believe in go big or go home. So just try to have your aim high. Aim high all the time. So prepare, because you don't aim high without preparation. You'll just embarrass yourself. There is never enough preparation. What I teach my sales people is learn who you are talking to. Understand who you're talking to. When I pitch, I don't know if I told you, I won a grant in 2020 from the British High Commission. And it was in front of a Lion's Dance style. Darshan Chandaria was the lead judge, right? And I pitched together with other 9 finalists, 10 with me, and I knew who I was pitching with. 2. I remember also Terian Chebet. So I knew she was in the space of cosmetics, and I knew Darshan was in the space of hospitality. I really wanted to convince those 2 of what I was doing, right? And it worked. I won the grant, and my pitch was flawless. It's actually online, and I use it sometimes. I don't always pitch that well. That was just a good pitch.
Interesting.
I knew my audience, and of course you know your company inside out.
Yeah.
That's why pitches should be done by founders.
Interesting. One of the thing about when you speak about any particular business is that you always see the highs, right? And Tommaso, we can see Jua, we've seen why exactly your particular growth has been, but what exactly has been some of the biggest challenges that you've experienced so far in the world of business? Because we always speak about the good things, the one grant and all, but I always want to I'd rather hear about the pains you've gone through and how did you overcome some of those particular pains that you faced?
I don't think we have time. Pains? Well, you've been told where I work. There is no roads where we work. Very often, security can be volatile. We have been in very unsecure situations more than once.
Yeah.
My convoy was shot at once.
Wow.
In Marsabit. So that's a challenge right there. Now, that's why few people work where we work. It can be daunting, but then again, that's why it's also rewarding, and that's why we have little competition. Not many people. If you do what I do, where I do it, right, and you do it better than me, then please employ me. I'll become your. So the challenge number one in our work can be how complicated the areas where we work is. But if I have to now put it towards the greater sectors, informality, lack of procedures, lack of protocols, regulatory framework. We are talking now, as we speak, there is finally a push to regulate honey production. I have studied and I have a lot of experience with honey and beekeeping. most of the honey in Kenya is low quality. It has no chance of being exported to Europe or the North American markets because it's not compliant.
Interesting. And speaking about what's it called, exporting to the international markets, already you do export.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. But primarily you mentioned to me that's already something that's already in the final phases of doing it.
It is.
What's the process for any particular entrepreneur who wants to export? Where are you, first of all, where exactly are you exporting to? Which particular country? And what's the process you've had to go through in terms of trying to finalize this?
It's complicated. I mean, again, depends where you export to.
Yes.
The Gulf doesn't have the same regulatory framework of Europe. So as a European and an Italian man, I looked into Europe, and there has been talks which finally seem to be ending for a free sort of duty agreement between Kenya and the EU as a whole. It was talks of a few weeks ago. So hopefully we will truly have that framework that the European Union will not tax certain duties from Kenyan producers and products. So we really hope that will go through. But even the UK, which is not Europe now, had a similar agreement. Now the problem is this agreement are talked over, but then the regulatory framework is much slower to catch up to the political talks. So right now we are looking at Europe, and we want to land our products in Italy. It's easier for me. I have an associate in Milan. And listen to this. Milan alone has 10 million visitors per year. Do you know how many Kenya has? 2.5. And tourism is huge. Imagine how big of a market we have for these. Room amenities, guest amenities, everyone needs these, right? So we want to start with Italy and the EU, and the regulatory framework is complicated. There is a number of things that you need to do from here. Let me, for instance, mention the certificate of origin, big and must.
Why do you sausage?
The Kenyan Chamber of Commerce. And then there are a number of things. For instance, you want to get a phytosanitary certificate from KFIS.
Wow, it's a process.
Look, I come from one of the most bureaucratic countries in the world, Italy. Let me tell you, Kenya, it can be very bureaucratic too. But you just comply. You comply. So you understand what you need to get, and you get it. We haven't yet exported. We are in the final stages of that. I'm going to Europe next month to make sure that this is a smooth process. And I want to make sure that we push for a made in Kenya brand that is recognizable. Made in Italy, everyone knows. Made in Italy is a synonym of quality wherever you go.
Shoes, clothes.
But Kenya can produce top quality too. Let's make in Kenya like a strong synonym of quality.
Interesting. And before we even get to wind up, I have some questions, some quick fire questions that I'd like just to put you on the spot. So I'll ask you around 10 questions, and then in 10, in the next probably a couple of seconds, in the next 90 seconds, say whatever that comes to your mind, or any answer that comes to your mind.
Gosh, okay.
So let me start. So the first question, how long does it take for you to get ready? An Italian man, tell us.
to dress?
Yes, to get ready, either for, what's it called, let's say in the morning, dressing up, yes.
Well, look, when I went to Australia, I realized I was a so-called metrosexual. So I do take care of my look. And
so you spend a lot of time in the mirror?
Not a lot, but I try to look decent.
All right. At what age do you want to retire?
60.
Why 60?
I want to enjoy my last 10 to 15 years.
Interesting. Do you ever post inspirational quotes on social media?
I have a quote, it's a motto, it's a Latin saying from the Roman times. Omni solum forti patria est. It translates in, every soil is the country of the strong. Meaning if you're strong, you can live anywhere.
That's interesting. What does a person need to be happy?
Yes, I can tell you what I need to be happy, but like a person, I don't know. What I was telling you the very first moment that we got here, drive. Get yourself a drive, because your 9 to 5 takes 2/3 of your life pretty much with commuting. Do you want to spend 2/3 of your life doing something that you don't like?
No.
Exactly.
What's your best age, or what has been your best age so far?
My best age?
Yes.
I haven't reached yet my prime.
Interesting. Name a word that starts with the letter Q.
Q?
Yes.
QAnon or Q-tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you rather climb a mountain or jump from a plane?
Climb.
How long can you hold your breath for?
A minute and a half.
And then the final question, what's the capital city of New York?
It's Attica. wait. It's not New. It's Providence. I knew it. You know why? Because I follow college basketball. I knew that. Tell me, what is it?
No, New York is just.
No, New York is a state.
Yes, it's a state.
That has a capital. We need to confirm that, because it's not New York. It's a common, common problem. I'm ready to go to court. You understand?
You have to seek your justice.
Exactly.
But thank you so much for having come to the show.
You're very
Maybe
welcome.
just final one word for any entrepreneur watching this, any advice that will just freely give.
Prepare yourself like there's no tomorrow. If you're not prepared, you will just embarrass yourself. Get your homework right. Prepare.
Interesting. And now I'm here to prepare to end the show. It's been quite an interesting conversation with Tommaso, the founder of Agar, who are producing Jua, who have very interesting products out there. You can check them out on social media. As always, we're coming to you live from the Capital Club, the place you need to be for any particular entrepreneur. Within the Capital Club, you can bump to whoever. So one of the core things for any entrepreneur is your network. In the morning coming here, I met the CS, Musheru, and there's so many interesting people. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say the names of persons or part of it, but you need to be a part of the Capital Club. My name is Ian Dennis. Thank you so much for having watched the show. You can find us on social media across all particular platforms at Ian Dennis Network, at KTN Home. Until next time, I'll see you right here on The Late Night Business.